married with Mike, and now you have 3 young girls, family of 5. But you still kept the same principle. Give first, save first. I think you're going to say we didn't get to save, but give, save, live. Tell us, share with us how that went.
We were very low income, so it was very difficult. It was very stretching of our faith. On the first Saturday of the month, we would write out all our checks, and we made sure we'd write the tithing one first so that it didn't get lost. But then we'd write the rent and then other bills and realize, oh, there's not very much left for groceries or clothes or miscellaneous. So that it was difficult then, and we did it out of discipline. But arriving Sunday morning with that check that we knew was hard, it was a big sacrifice. So Sunday morning, putting that into the offering plate, that was a big act of trust, but also joyful, because as soon as we released it, we felt free to be in God's care. We knew it was out of our hands, that He would care for us. And we experienced that over and over again, so it slowly got easier and easier. But yeah, it became very joyful.
I just heard you say that giving to the Lord the first fruits and the tithe, 10% of your income, was an act of worship. And then I heard you say you were trusting the Lord, you were being faithful to His command, and you were obedient to what He has called you to do. And then that produced joy. Could you share with us a real story, a situation where you actually put your trust in the Lord, trusting that He will provide?
I have a good story, if Michaela doesn't mind me sharing her story too. Well, so usually by week 3 in the month, we were like, hoping that the money would stretch. And I'd taken Michaela, our youngest daughter, she was about 5 at the time, grocery shopping with us or with me. And as we were driving, we'd hit all the discount stores because we had to make our money stretch. She said, "Mom, can we please have bagels?" And I'm like, "Oh, sorry, honey. Like, we have X amount of dollars, and I gotta get a whole week's worth of lunches of groceries, so we don't have the money for bagels." So she said, "Mom, can I pray and ask God for bagels?" I did not have the heart to tell her that she shouldn't pray for that. She should pray for big things. So I said, go. Yes, you may pray. So she's praying out loud in the car as we drive, asking God to please bless us with bagels. And I was a little worried. And then we pull into the bread store. And this has never happened before. The discount bin is always like 3 days old bread. It's like dry, stale stuff. There's a whole flat of bagels, like, kid you not. And there's English muffins, and there's garlic bread. Like, there's all these things that we've never been able to afford to have. And Michaela just stops dead in her tracks and goes, "Mom, God answered my prayer." And she shouted it out so loud, the whole store heard, and everyone's giggling. Whatever. Anyways, we walked out that store with a bunch of bags of bagels. And she was talking nonstop in the car about how God provides for us, like even the things we don't need, but we want. And that was a big lesson for me. But then as we go into the next store, she's like, "Can we get cream cheese to go with the bagels?" And I'm like, "Oh, hon, no. Now I have to buy A, B, C, D. We don't have money for cream cheese at this store." And sure enough, I walk up to the deli counter to get lunch meat for the kids' lunches that week. And the lady just says to me, "I have all these meat ends, and they're just going to go in the garbage. Do you have any use for them?" So I'm like, "Yeah, I'll take those." So I didn't have to buy any lunch meat that week because she actually gave me more than we needed of lunch meat. So I nudge Michaela and go, "Guess what? God gave us cream cheese too." So she whipped down the aisle and bought cream cheese, and she told I don't know how many people how God is so good and blesses us. So that was a big lesson for us to know that, hey, we gave, not knowing how it was going to stretch the end of the month. And not only did it stretch, we got bagels with cream cheese.
The Lord Jesus says in his good book, he delights in cheerful givers, as in those who give not out of obligation, not out of guilt, but out of joy, out of cheerfulness. Why do you suppose you experience that joy?
I think it started from when I was a child. My parents always shared their God stories with us. So I had that strong foundation of God providing and celebrating in those providing moments. And then we tried to continue that with our kids. So I feel like that helped with the joy, is seeing God's faithfulness and seeing it in big ways and small ways, but recognizing that I think that really helped us with the joy part.
The Lord is always faithful. He does not need our money. What he wants is us. And when you recognize that as you give your first fruits and tithe, Jesus, you have us. We trust you. We worship you. And that realization brings joy. And also at the same time, knowing that Jesus says, my good and faithful servant, you're making me your first. That brings me joy, child. But I think it was a very opportune moment for you to disciple the parents who's going to watch all this. Okay? As in, you learned this from your parents. Could you share one story whereby they model this for you, giving the Lord their first fruits and tithe?
So we knew as a family that my parents practiced first fruits and tithing, and we had a leak in our roof, and my parents asked us to sit down as a family, and we prayed because we didn't have the money to fix the hole in the roof. But they could have chosen to not tithe that month and fix the roof, but they gave their offering to the Lord and had a hole in the roof. And 2 days later in the mailbox was a check from my parents that was money. It was money owed to my dad, but it was from an old client that he'd written off. That person suddenly felt inclined to pay back a debt, and it was the exact amount of the roof repair quote. So then my parents showed us that check and said, look, we were faithful to God. We had a need, and the Lord provided. And we got those lessons growing up all the time. So that helped me have a foundation in being secure in God's meeting my needs. So I thank you, Mom and Dad.
I hear you say, there's no doubt in your mind, not even a shred of doubt. Will God provide for me? Will he be there for me? And the answer is yes, because he has a track record with you. And you have experienced that because of two things: his instructions, your obedience, he has three things, and his provisions. That's more precious than gold, isn't it? Thank you for sharing.